For over 2 decades now, one book has pretty much completely changed the way we talk about personal finance. It's become this global phenomenon, sold over 32 million copies, kicked off who knows how many success stories, and yeah, generated just as much controversy. So let's dive into this masterclass and debate Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
This single idea right here, it's the engine for the entire book. It's a direct shot at our whole educational system. The argument is that what we're all taught about work and money is just fundamentally wrong, and it's actually setting us up for a life of financial struggle. All right, so here's our game plan for breaking this all down. We're going to start with that core story of the two dads. Then we'll unpack the book's kind of radical definitions of money and assets. After that, we'll look at the mindset it teaches, and then, and this is important, we'll get into the very real debate around the book and its author before we land on the big takeaway.
So the whole book is built around this incredibly simple but really powerful story. Kiyosaki's two father figures. You've got his real dad, the poor dad, who is super educated, a government employee, and then you have his best friend's father, the rich dad, an entrepreneur who, believe it or not, never even finished the 8th grade. And they just had two completely opposite ways of looking at the world of money.
And this right here just perfectly nails the difference. See, poor dad's advice is all about becoming a good employee. Finding job security inside a system. But rich dad's advice, it was about becoming an owner, creating or buying the system itself. It's this huge shift from working for your money to having your money work for you.
And that thinking leads us straight into one of the book's most famous concepts. The idea is, if you follow that traditional path of just working for a paycheck, Kiyosaki says you get trapped in what he calls the rat race. So, what exactly is that? It's this pattern, right? The fear of not having enough money makes you work your tail off. But then, as soon as you get that paycheck, the desire for nicer things kicks in. Greed, basically. So you spend, your bills go up, and bam, the fear comes right back, forcing you to keep working harder and harder just to stay in the exact same place. It's a trap, and it's powered by our own emotions.
So how in the world do you escape the rat race? Well, according to the book, it all starts with what is probably the single most important lesson in financial literacy. You have to understand the real difference between an asset and a liability. And honestly, this is where the message just cut through all the noise, because the definitions it gives, they're not what you'd learn in some accounting class.
The book argues that most of us, even highly educated people, we struggle our whole lives because we just don't get this simple but profound distinction. We spend our lives buying things we think are assets, but they're actually liabilities in disguise.
Just forget all the complex accounting jargon for a second. Rich Dad's definition is brutally simple. It's all about cash flow. An asset is anything that generates income for you, whether you're physically working or not. So we're talking about things like rental properties, stocks that pay dividends, or a business you own that doesn't need you there every single day.
And here's the flip side of that coin. A liability is anything that costs you money, month after month. It's just a drain on your cash. This includes stuff like car loans, credit card debt, and, here's the most controversial one, the mortgage on the house you actually live in. So here's the crucial point. The rich, they spend their lives acquiring these income-generating assets. The poor and the middle class, on the other hand, well, they spend their lives acquiring liabilities that they have been taught to believe are assets.
This little table here just lays out the problem perfectly. For a typical middle-class family, the salary comes in and then it flows right back out to pay for all those liabilities. Just notice there are basically no real assets on the balance sheet bringing in any independent income. This is the blueprint of the rat race.
And that brings us to the book's most famous, most explosive question. If we go by Rich Dad's definitions, if you live in your house and it takes money out of your pocket every single month for the mortgage, for taxes, for upkeep, is it really an asset or is it your single biggest liability? The book's answer to that question pretty much shocked the world.
But look, just understanding the numbers isn't enough. The book makes a huge point that building wealth requires a complete shift in your psychology, your whole approach to money, especially when it comes to fear and failure.
Let's be real. Everyone's scared of losing money, even the rich. That's not what separates people. The difference, according to Kiyosaki, is how you react to that fear. See, most people play not to lose. They avoid risk, and because of that, they miss out on big opportunities. Winners, on the other hand, they play to win. And this is a massive mindset shift. The book basically says that instead of being terrified of failure, you should see it as a chance to learn. Every loss, every single mistake, it's just feedback. It's the biggest secret of winners. They aren't afraid to lose because they know that's how they're going to learn enough to eventually win big.
Of course, you absolutely cannot talk about Rich Dad, Poor Dad without getting into the massive debate that's been raging around it for years. Its super simple message has had a really polarizing effect. It's created legions of loyal fans and an equal number of very fierce critics.
Okay, first, let's just get a handle on the sheer scale of its influence. This is not some little niche finance book. It is a global publishing machine. It spent more than 6 years on the New York Times bestseller list. Over 32 million copies sold worldwide. That level of reach means its impact on how we all talk about money is just undeniable.
But the criticisms are just as significant. A lot of people argue that Kiyosaki got rich selling books and high-priced seminars, not from the actual investing advice inside them. He's faced lawsuits, accusations of fraud. Critics will tell you the advice is often dangerously vague, and frankly, a lot of people are convinced the whole rich dad character might be a complete work of fiction.
So, with this insane success on one side and these really serious criticisms on the other, what are we supposed to make of it all? Well, that brings us to our final and maybe the most important point of all.
Look, whether you think the book is a brilliant blueprint or just a really clever sales pitch, its incredible success proves one thing beyond a shadow of a doubt. People everywhere are desperate for financial knowledge. They feel like the traditional school system completely failed them, and they are actively looking for answers on how to manage their money and build a better future.
And this, right here, is the central message that just rings true, no matter what you think of the rest of it. You could win the lottery tomorrow, but it won't keep you rich for long if you don't have the intelligence to manage it. The book's real core idea is that financial intelligence is what solves problems and creates money, and that the absolute necessity of financial education is its most powerful and undisputed legacy.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. Forget the specific formulas and stories for a minute. What is the single most important financial lesson that you had to learn all by yourself, long after you left any classroom? Because that, right there, that's where the real journey to financial literacy actually begins.